people don't really understand the extent of corruption and what their agenda really is, because the media, the mainstream media, is so complicit in protecting these people. Most people today, especially with the economy as it is, they're worried about putting food on their table, going to work, taking care of their families. They don't have enough time to sit and really get into the details of what's happening in government. And when they turn on CNN or MSNBC, they don't see this. They don't see what's really going on, so they don't know. And to me, this is the biggest problem. How do you get the mainstream media to really report the news as it's happening, and not their perspective, and not lying about things, and not stopping from the truth to get out? You don't know what's going on in this country, and it's terrible. But how do you fight that? Hey everybody, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. Everything is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give God all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving for that, because He deserves it. No question about it. Today I have a very special guest, but before I get into that, I want to just mention a couple of things. I have 3 events coming up. September 9th, I'm going to be in Ohio. Ray Boom Boom Mancini, great fighter. He's got a benefit for his foundation. I'll be speaking there. I'm the keynote speaker that night. I think tickets are available. We're going to post a link. Should be a great night. Ray's a great guy. Love the guy. Good friend. September 23rd, I'm going to be at Atlantic City at Caesar's World. Okay, it's going to be a great night. I'll be on stage about an hour and a half. We're going to do Q&A, VIP, book selling, the whole bit. We're going to take photos. We're going to have a good time. And all the events that we've had have been great, and people love it, and so do I. So that's September 23rd. September 28th, I'll be at the Beacon Theater. Myself, Mike Tyson, Chaz Palminteri. It's going to be a great show, the first of its kind. We're all New York guys, 2 from Brooklyn, 1 from the Bronx. Remember Chaz? Now you just can't leave. Love that line from The Bronx Tale. Anyway, tickets will be available, I think, in the next 2 or 3 days. You can get them online at the Beacon Theater. So we got those 3 events coming up, and I'm looking forward to all 3 of them. Today, Kari Lake. I'm sure many of you know who she is. She ran for the governor of Arizona in 2021. She lost to a highly contested election. We're going to get into that. But she's a special person. You know, I love strong women. I love committed women. And Kari is certainly one of them. Whether you agree with her politics or not, I happen to agree with her. But whether you do or not, love strong women. Remember, okay, this is what it's all about, having strong women in this country. And whenever I have one, actually I do. I've been married 38 years to one, and I've got 5 daughters that are all very strong and independent, so you appreciate that. And Kari, she's terrific. And just a little bit about her background. She was the youngest of 9 children, 8 girls in that family, 1 boy. Can you imagine that? And I understand the boy turned out great. She attended the University of Iowa, and I have some feeling for that, because I've spoken at that university twice so far to all the student athletes. I'll be going back there again, I think in September. She worked her way up from an intern at a television station in Iowa while she was in college to eventually become an anchor in the Arizona area. And, she had great accomplishments. She was doing extremely well. I think she interviewed Obama at one point. She interviewed Trump at one point. So she really did well. And then she decided to throw her hat in the ring for governor of Arizona back in 2021. And she's had some great accomplishments. She's a very committed woman. She's written a new book. We're going to be posting that. And I understand the book is terrific. She had just sent me a copy. Can't wait to read it. My wife will also read it. I think you're going to enjoy this interview. She says it straight. There's no shame in her game. She talks right out what she believes, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So, with no further waiting, here is my interview with Kari Lake. So, Kari, why I'm so excited to talk to you is basically because I know how knowledgeable you are. Obviously, you know your background, you ran for governor, you have a very good take and perception on what's going on in this country. And myself, as a father of 7 and a grandfather of 6, I am very concerned about the direction this country is going in. So I have a number of issues that I wanted to discuss with you and get your perspective and let my viewers know. They pretty well know where I stand, but it's certainly good for them to have another voice. I think we have to start with all this stuff that is going on with Biden and Hunter Biden and even the new developments today with Devon Archer. I want to get your take on this because this is so overtly corrupt in my opinion. And I think my opinion is pretty educated from where I came from. I just need to get your take on it because I don't understand how this is even continuing.
Well, my take on it is that this is an illegitimate government, and this is what happens when you allow rigged, stolen elections to stand rather than doing the right thing, which I know many people were trying to do the right thing and preventing that rigged election from being certified. But we had people in elected positions who didn't do the right thing for the people, didn't give us the relief needed after an obviously stolen and rigged election in 2020. And now we, the people, are suffering the consequences of an illegitimate, corrupt government. Run by truly, a crime family, run by a crime family. The Biden family is a crime family. We're finding this out. Joe Biden has lied about everything. I never talked to Hunter about his business dealings. Now we find out he talked to him dozens of times. Even when the dealings were going down, they were calling Joe Biden. This guy has taken millions, tens of millions of dollars from our adversaries, from the enemies of the United States of America. For example, the CCP, the communist regime in China, who enslaves their own people and forces slave labor on their people. He's taken money from Ukraine, from Burisma. I joke the only people that haven't bribed him are the American people, and maybe we have to. Maybe to get some relief and some help, we need to pool our money together and try to bribe the Bidens to secure the southern border, to bring about safety on our streets, to end the war that he's trying to stoke and start in Ukraine. This is absolutely disgusting. This entire administration is illegitimate. The government right now is illegitimate because they've allowed this rigged election to stand. And this is why I stand up. And this is one of the reasons I got into politics. I walked away from my very illustrious career as a broadcast journalist and a news anchor. And I stepped away from that because, Michael, I realized it was just propaganda. And it became very apparent during COVID that what was being pushed on the people were lies and propaganda. And that's when the people of Arizona said, would you please run for office? We need somebody we know, we trust, who understands the issues that we're facing and will fight for us. And so maybe I was naive. I decided, what the heck, I'm going to jump into politics as a citizen because that's what our founding fathers envisioned. That's what they wanted. And maybe I was naive and not realizing that the swamp was very mucky here in Arizona, because the swamp, they won't let people who are outsiders win. The swamp will not allow we, the people, to choose our own representation. Unless we choose somebody who's part of the swamp, they won't allow it. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse if we don't stand up and fight for honest elections. And that's why I'm fighting like I'm in some back alley fight. I've got the knives out and I'm going bare knuckle fighting with these people, because we've got to fight for the next year to secure our elections so that we, the people, can choose who represents us in 24 and gets us out of the mess. And for me, that person is Donald John Trump.
Well, I don't think you're naive, Kari, at all. I think it's people like you that have to move forward. And again, you finally get a realization of just how corrupt and dirty they can be. But we have to fight back. I agree with you 1,000%. But question, do you think that Vice President Pence at the time had the ability, or had the authority, I should say, constitutionally to decertify the results of that election?
Well, he wasn't going to decertify it. He was going to send these questionable results back to the states for them to look into it. And I know he had the ability to do that. Absolutely. Constitutionally, he had the ability to do that. The problem is that they try to reword what they were trying to say, or what he was trying to do, or what the people wanted. And they say he needed to decertify it. And he says, well, I don't really have the ability to do that. He had the ability to send it back to the states. There were questions about the results of the election. I believe 1 million people, I know the estimates that the officials have given us are smaller than that, but I really believe there were 1 million people, almost all of them peaceful, who showed up on January 6th because they saw what happened in a rigged election where their sacred right to vote was trampled upon. And they showed up to ask the leaders of Congress to help, to give relief, to examine, to slow down and spend a little time examining these results, because there was all kinds of evidence coming forward of wrongdoing and fraud in our election. And they weren't willing to do that, our elected officials. There were some very brave people. We had a couple of brave people from Arizona. I can encourage and always want to give kudos where they belong. Congressman Gosar started to get the ball rolling when they brought up Arizona. He stood up and said, we have problems here in these results. And then that's when the Fedsurrection happened. That's when and we already know that there were feds and there were people in that crowd who were trying to stir things up to make it into something that it wasn't, so that they could rush through and certify this fraudulent election. I'm appalled by it. And they're still trying to throw people behind bars who were simply there. They're trying to blame people for things that they didn't do. And they're imprisoning people. We have political prisoners right now here in the United States of America. And they're going to go after Trump as well on it. And this is a witch hunt unlike we've ever seen in our entire country. The people who were there on January 6th were concerned citizens exercising their First Amendment rights to peacefully protest. And they're trying to turn this into something else. It's sickening. And it just goes to the rot and corruption inside our federal government right now.
Yeah, and I think there's enough information that's come out to support everything that you've said. This is something that scares me, having had so much experience, with the Justice Department and the government, is this weaponization of the Department of Justice, the FBI, law enforcement, for this administration to go after its political enemies. And I think it might have started with January 6th, but look where it's gotten from that point till now. And, I always say this about Trump. Listen, I believe in my heart Trump really loves this country and wanted to do the right thing. And I believe his policies for America were great. We have 4 years of evidence to support that. There's no question about it. But I've never seen the amount of vindictiveness and hatred go against anyone in government like we've seen against Donald Trump. I still don't understand it. I really don't. I don't know what's behind it. And maybe you can try to explain the agenda that these people have, because there's so many things that they're doing that I just don't understand, and meaning this whole administration.
Well, he was never supposed to win in 2016. They were going to, hand it over to Hillary Clinton, and they did everything to try to make America think that Trump wasn't popular. Remember the old 98% chance Hillary's going to win, and they kept showing phony poll numbers saying nobody likes Trump, hoping that they would get in people's heads like, oh, well, if no one likes him, then I better not vote for him. But the American people said, you know what? I like him, and I'm going to vote for him. And they outdid the algorithms that were supposed to deliver that win to Hillary. And surprise, surprise, we got the first outsider to run for office in decades. And when they saw that, they went, oh my gosh, we can't do to him the same thing that they did to Kennedy and that they tried to do to Reagan. The people won't go for that. And they worked immediately to try to bring him down with phony investigations, witch hunts, the dirty dossier that was paid for by the DNC and Hillary Clinton that Arizona Senator John McCain took in his hand, handed to his staffer, and had marched down to the FBI. They all knew it was a bunch of BS. They all knew it was they were going to have to bring down Donald Trump because he was going to go in there and do work for we the people. And when he saw the level of corruption, he was going to overturn every single stone and show who the corrupt people were and return our government, the power, back to the people, which is where it belongs. And so they spent 4 years attacking him with their buddies in the news. And I believe there are many people in the news who are actually under the control of some of our, CIA, FBI. And they are working in the news, spreading these false stories about Donald Trump, trying to turn the people against him, lying about Russiagate, knowing they were printing lies about Russiagate, printing them anyway, going after his family for 4 years. And then they threw COVID into the mix because they realized, oh my gosh, he's going to win in a landslide in 2020. Let's throw COVID into the mix and start the mail-in ballot frenzy. and then we can steal the election. And they had to steal it in 2020 in huge numbers. Then they continued to lie. They continued to attack us. If we even brought up how corrupt the election was, they called us election deniers. And, we saw what happened at 3 a.m. on election night. We saw that they stopped counting because President Trump was just going to steamroll over basement Biden, who didn't do anything. And then they did it because nothing was done to fix it, because they forced those results on us. And any American who tried to stand up and say, wait a minute, there's corruption here, they attacked, they tried to cancel, they tried to destroy, they tried to imprison. But the people aren't having it anymore. You can imprison Americans and they'll say, fine, we're still going to fight for our country. And that's where we are right now. They're going after Trump because he is the one guy who's standing up for us. And he wants to return the government back to the people. It's gone fully corrupt. There's a cancer inside of our government. It's complete corruption. It's not Democrats versus Republicans anymore. It's a big uniparty swamp versus pro-America, Americanism. It's communism / globalism versus Americanism. And so right now I see President Trump running, and I see all these others, the B team, and they're all part of the uniparty, in my opinion. We have to get President Trump in there. I love the kind of enemies he has. He's got the right kind of enemies. And I will stand up. I will walk across broken glass. I will walk through fire to get that man elected, because there's no man right now who is standing up for the people of this country like Donald Trump. And I don't care what they've said about him, because I worked in the media. I know how the media operates. They lie, they spin, they put out stories that are pure lies. And I can tell you, I've had many stories written about me, Michael, that are complete fiction. They're going after me really almost just as hard as they are Trump. Constant lies, phony polls, trying to make people think that nobody likes me, when in fact, the people of Arizona not only like me, they trust me, and they want me to stay in there and fight for them. I'm only doing this because I care about the people of my state and, frankly, the people in this country. And if we don't stand up when we have the ability to fight, then who's going to fight for them? Who's going to fight election fraud if the candidate that the election was stolen from doesn't stand up and fight for it? And that's why I'm in this. It's not fun. I don't enjoy spending my days talking to lawyers and having to deal with the corrupt individuals who run our elections. But if we don't stand up and fight now, we lose our country. And so I'm willing to do it. And I know there's an army of Americans standing side by side with me who are ready to stand up and fight for this country as well, including Donald Trump.
That's for sure, and count me in as one of them. But, the frustrating thing, I think you nailed it. People don't really understand the extent of corruption and what their agenda really is, because the media, the mainstream media, is so complicit in protecting these people that the normal everyday person who doesn't have the time, and I stand up for them, because most people today, especially with the economy as it is, they're worried about putting food on their table, going to work, taking care of their families. They don't have enough time to sit and really get into the details of what's happening in government. And when they turn on CNN or MSNBC, they don't see this. They don't see what's really going on, so they don't know. And to me, this is the biggest problem. How do you get the mainstream media to really report the news as it's happening, and not their perspective, and not lying about things, and not stopping from the truth to get out? I mean, honestly, if you don't watch Fox News, to really get truth on, you don't know what's going on in this country, and it's terrible. But how do you fight that?
Well, I think all of the news has gone corrupt. I mean, including the one you just mentioned.
Yeah,
that's gone globalist. They are pushing a globalist and communist agenda. Period. And hey, listen, they're private companies. That's their prerogative. If they want to drive their company into the ground, that's fine. But it's getting harder. And I think what we have to do is completely turn them off. You are more educated if you turn off the news completely. Don't click on their stories. I'm here to tell you, they write complete lies. I mean, look at them getting rid of Tucker. Even Tucker said it. The media is lying to you. And I used to think there was a sliver of truth in every story, until I started to run for office, and I couldn't believe how many stories I would read about me, because they recognized immediately, we got a problem on our hands with this one. We can't bribe her. We can't blackmail her. She is truly in this because she cares about the people of her state. And they just started writing hit pieces constantly. I would look down at, my team would send me any media that was written about me. And there were dozens of articles a day or news mentions a day, and they were just writing complete garbage lies. they will do that with people they want to bring down. And I think people just need to be more savvy and recognize when they're attacking somebody, why are they attacking that person? Why are they so interested in bringing that person down? And I actually suggest you vote for and support the people who are being attacked in the news, because they're the ones who are fighting for the people. But we do need to be willing to just turn all of it off. And when their ratings go down to nothing, they will either go under and hopefully be bought by somebody who actually is pro-America and cares about our country, or there'll be a replacement that comes around. And there's a lot of alternative news out there. Real America's Voice is doing a great job. Ben Bergquam is doing a great job covering the border. We have people who are covering Washington, D.C. Really well with Real America's Voice. And even Newsmax is doing a nice job right now as an alternative if you still want to flip on your TV. Just the News is great with John Solomon. I think he's one of the preeminent reporters, yes, true journalists out there. So you have to pick and choose who you can trust, and find journalists who you can trust who tell the truth. But we have to educate those who are still kind of just watching the news and believing what they're seeing.
Well, so the agenda, and I agree with all of that, the agenda they have is just to stay in power and control. And, one of the things, that's got me, that I don't know how people don't pick up on this, they always say, this is with Biden and Hunter, follow the money. Well, the Congress has now uncovered the fact that there are 11 or 12 shell companies. These companies,
20.
Why I'm familiar with this.
20.
Or maybe 20. Why I'm familiar with this, because I had 18 of those shell companies. There was no brick and mortar behind them. They had no business. The only function was to open up a bank account and collect money. And at the time, and this is 35 years ago, I was defrauding the government out of tax on every gallon of gasoline. So we had shell companies set up to take this money in. It's so easy to identify because these companies do nothing but collect money. There's nothing behind them business-wise. And the money is being flowed into these companies. Why are the Republicans not asking him straight out, what were the function of these companies? What did they do? What was behind them? Who was in charge of them? What service did they provide? These are easy questions that should be, every day they should be asked, because there's no answer to them that's legitimate. And they already have the trail of money going into these companies. It's so obvious, and it frustrates me why they don't keep pounding away at this.
Well, and his own campaign was a shell company. He didn't even have a campaign headquarters. I mean, he didn't even campaign. That was a shell company, if you think about it. It was just a front acting like he was a legitimate candidate when he didn't even campaign. And they've been doing this for years. There's video evidence. You could see Hunter traveling with him to China. We've got the laptop from hell. I don't know why they're not asking, unless they're worried, and maybe they have blackmail material on some of these members of Congress and Senate, and they're afraid to ask the questions. But this is a good way to judge what kind of media we should trust. Is the media outlet that you are watching asking these tough questions? Are they covering it? Are they covering what Joe Biden is up to, or are they only covering all of the witch hunt, phony stuff coming at Trump? That's a really good way of weeding out who's who in the media, who's honest and who's just a propagandist, a shill.
Yeah, and the other frustrating thing when they talk about, possible impeachment inquiry, which there has to be, it's the only way that the American people are going to be able to see what's really going on here. Biden laughs about it like it's a big joke to him. Just the audacity of this guy as president to laugh in the faces of the American people. Kari, look, I was no saint at one time. I was on the street and I took full responsibility for what I did. But this guy is worse than people that I knew on the street. I mean, I just can't understand. He has defrauded the American people basically his whole career. And now he comes into office. He allows his son, who we understand what it is. I don't want to demean him any more than everybody knows already, between his drug addiction and everything else that he has in his resume, so to speak. How do you not stop this kid and say, hey, I'm the president of the United States. I'm the vice president. You got to stop all of these relationships that you have. You're dirtying up this office. You're dirtying up my career and my stature. And the only reason that he didn't do that was because he was complicit. He was his partner. He was doing this. Hunter was doing this on Biden's behalf. And Hunter even states that. He states it in so many of his emails. And yet people don't see through this, and it's so frustrating.
But I disagree with you a little bit on that, Michael. I think people do see through it. The people of America see through it, and they're pulling their hair out, looking at Congress going, why isn't something being done? Why aren't they impeaching him? They tried to impeach Trump over a perfect phone call, but we've got a guy who's truly committing traitorous acts against our country and taking bribes and payouts from our enemy, and they're debating whether they should impeach the guy. Get it going. You know what I think it is? They don't want to. What I would do if I were Kevin McCarthy is call everybody back, say, we don't have time for August recess. Get back here and we're going to get going. We've got a country that's falling apart and we don't have time for people to take vacation. So get back here. We're going to do the people's work. We're going to impeach this guy immediately. He's a crook. He's a criminal. His whole family is depraved, and we're going to get him out of here. And I know people say, well, then we're stuck with Kamala. Well, then we impeach her, okay? Because she's also compromised as well. The whole thing, if they really wanted to do the right thing, they would start by digging into the 2020 election. We have to unravel that. It was stolen from the people. And I know it's uncomfortable to talk about. We're living in unprecedented times. It calls for unprecedented measures. And 2020, it all goes back to what all these problems we have go back to a rigged election. The people recognize that Joe Biden was a farce, was a joke, was compromised. The people recognized it. That's why they didn't truly vote. He didn't get 81 million votes. 81 million ballots, maybe, but not 81 million votes. He lost 17 out of 18 bellwethers. That's an impossibility. You don't lose 17 out of 18 bellwethers and then get 81 million votes, the most votes in the history of our country. You don't lose 83% of counties across this beautiful nation and then win the most votes ever. Joe Biden lost the 2020 election. President Trump won it, and the American people know it. And they are waiting patiently, although I think their patience is wearing thin, for the people in control of DC to do something about it. We can't handle much more of this lawlessness. We can't handle much more of this bumbling fool sitting in the White House, occupying the White House. We can't handle more of Bidenomics, whatever they call it. It's just basically inflation that's out of control, stealing money from our bank accounts, basically, and our paychecks. We can't handle more corruption and more in your face. It's a middle finger that's being given to the people of this country every day by the folks in power in DC. Frankly, I can't wait for Trump to get in there and drain the swamp, hose it down with bleach, and return the government back to the people.
Well, let me ask you, do you think, Kari, that the fact that he has so much support in light of all these indictments and every other thing they've thrown at him, do you think that's a great sign that the American people are saying, we see through all of this now?
I think it is, actually. When another indictment, he'll probably be indicted in Georgia, and people are just kind of like, we don't care, we still want him. We know these indictments are a bunch of BS, and we still want President Trump, and they're going to go out and vote for him. But what I'm hearing out there, Michael, and I'm traveling the country, I'm speaking to people all over. I'm going to red states and blue states. You'd be surprised. I was just in Oregon, in Portland and Salem, Oregon, and I mean, I was thinking I was going to be, get a lot of pushback. I didn't get any pushback. Not a single soul in Oregon came up to me and said, I don't like what you're doing. Stop talking about the elections. Conversely, I had more people stop me at the airport, at the events I did, hug me, I mean, in tears, saying, thank you for working so hard and tirelessly to reform our elections. Until we get honest elections, we're never going to have a voice again in this country. So President Trump's going to continue. We're going to get that man elected, but I think people are really worried about the corruption in our elections and wondering if their vote will count in 24. And that's why I continue through Save Arizona Fund. I continue with my lawsuit. We pushed it into the appellate court for the way they cheated in broad daylight, right in front of our faces. 60% of the polling locations, 59% of the polling locations on election day were non-functioning, had broken equipment. There were 4 and 5 and 6 hour lines. They intentionally printed the wrong ballot on election day with the purpose of having it jam the machines. And 250,000 ballots were spit out unreadable, not to mention the 100,000 phony ballots that were counted in the final count. And not to mention the fact that they didn't even use approved software. They used unapproved, unlawful software. And the list goes on of what they did. So we're fighting that. I'm going to be filing. We also filed today to speed up getting a court date as we're trying to get the envelopes, the mail-in envelopes with all the bad signatures. We want to show the people how bad these signatures are. This is really identity theft, if you think about it. If somebody is registered to vote and somebody stole their vote and signed a fake signature, that's identity theft. And there are thousands of cases of that here in Arizona. So I'm pushing forward in the courts. We have to do that. That is where the battlefield is right now to get honest elections. And we're going to be filing for injunctive relief to try to prevent the same crooks and criminals who ran the last election from running the next election here in Maricopa County. So we have a lot of irons in the fire. I am not going to quit. I'm not going to be deterred by any of these nasty news articles, phony polls, ugly things that people say. I don't care what they say. You can't cancel me. I'm a mom. I'm on a mission to make sure that my kids have the same rights and freedoms, Michael, that you and I had, and that my future grandkids have a country they can live in with the Constitution, with the United States Constitution still intact. And I know there are millions of people just like me all across this country who are ready to fight for this country as well, just like we are.
Well, yeah, Kari, and you know, what measures are you aware of that are now in place so that we don't have a repeat performance in 24?
This is some part of the reason I'm continuing to fight in the courts. The fake news will tell you it's all over. You know, her case is lost. No, our case is going to the appellate court, and we have more and more proof every day. We're going to file some legal paperwork to try to prevent the same, as I said, folks who ran the last election from running the next election. We'd like to eventually get our case, one of them, up to the United States Supreme Court. Unfortunately, our courts here in Arizona, the corruption goes from top to bottom. We're hoping that with all of these cases out there, one of them will get a judge who recognizes that the weight of this republic lies squarely on his shoulders, and he will finally do the right thing. But if not, we're going to continue pushing it. We'll take it to the U.S. Supreme Court. We just have to keep moving quickly, though, because as we know, Election Day is bearing down on us. And I think the reason they're trying to indict Trump is because they know he's going to be on the ballot, and they know they can't rig it big enough to stop his victory. That's what they had to do with us. They stole it even bigger in 22 in our race than they did in 2020, because the movement of people was so massive. They had to do it right in front of our eyes. The people of Arizona saw their vote being stolen right in front of their eyes as they stood in line for 4 hours only to fill out a ballot and insert it into a machine and have it spit out unreadable, and then be told to put it in a drawer or even on some occasions a garbage bag, and they would take it downtown to be counted. The people of Arizona are fed up. The people of America are fed up. And I don't think they're going to be able to rig an election to the level they would have to stop the vote of the people of this country in 2024.
Well, I hope you're right, Kari. I'm telling you, I have, I shouldn't say I have little faith, but you know, the level of corruption that I've seen in this country, in this government, in this administration has gotten to a point where it's just so hard to believe it's happening here in America. But I do see it. I see people, you know, my wife tells me all the time, she says, you know, you're an eternal optimist, but you have a pessimistic view of what's going on. I said, because I just can't process this. You know, they're so overt. They don't even care anymore. They don't care. They must feel that they have this so locked up, that they're so secure, you know, that they don't have to worry about the people anymore. And, you know, the biggest fraud being perpetrated on this country is from this administration. From top to bottom, everything that they're doing.
I don't think that they're overt because they are like, we have the power. I think they're having to act in such an overt way where it's right in front of our eyes, shows you that they are losing power. You know, they used to do all this behind our backs and we had our head in the sand. We didn't know about it. Thank God a man came down that escalator in June of 2015, like a bull in a china shop, and woke us up from our deep slumber and made us aware of just how corrupt things were. And it's been a slow wake up call call for some, but people are waking up, and we're waking up in such huge numbers that, imagine this, at the elections, they have to steal it right in front of our eyes and make it obvious. That tells me they are losing control and losing it quickly. And I think they know that. And that's why they're doing everything they can to try to prevent Trump from being on the ballot. And what I believe we have to do is work better with our friends who are Democrats. I mean, listen, if you were a Democrat and you're fed up now, I think there's millions of them. It's because the Democrat Party doesn't exist as it used to. This is not the Democrat Party. This is a communist party. Now, it's not even socialism, it's pure on communism. And they're using the word Democrat and making Democrats who are old school or just haven't been paying attention think that it's still the Democrat Party. This is not the Democrat Party anymore. This is a party that wants the end of America. And I think we have a lot of disaffected Democrats who will come on over and vote for America First politicians, America First fighters like President Trump. And we just need to do a better job at explaining to them what America First means. It means that we secure our border, because no American who has children would ever want to have fentanyl pouring across the border, making it into their kids' hands. No American who loves this country and loves their family would ever want to have millions of people pouring across that we don't even know who they are, or we find out are hardened criminals, terrorists. No American wants to defund the police so that they can't even walk across the grocery store parking lot and not worry. And no American wants to see the homeless population balloon out of control to where you can't even go to a park and take your kids there, because it's not a park anymore. It's just it's basically a housing ground for tents and drug addicts. So I think the Democrats are waking up. Unfortunately, many of them have been the victims of a massive brainwashing campaign that's been going on for years, especially hardcore the last 8 years, to try to make them hate Donald Trump. The one guy who's actually out there giving up everything and fighting for us, the media and the Uniparty is just continuing to put fake stories, throw little fake brain worms out there, I call them, to get into people's heads to make them think that Donald Trump is the enemy, when in fact, he's actually the good guy who's trying to help save America. So we got to do a better job at waking people up and having those conversations with our friends who are Democrats, who are probably about right now looking at the country going, ooh, this is not what I thought I was voting for.